Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more notable names in African American history. Um, this is meant to be Friday's video since, it's going to be late and popping up, but I was getting a whole bunch of other stuff done to try to get things in a movement where I can just constantly bam, 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 yeah. But here we go. Today we are talking about Muhammad Ali. The man often considered the greatest boxer in boxing history, as far as a heavyweight boxer. But yeah. Let's get into this a little bit. We'll start off with the wiki page here. He was born Cassius Clay on January the 17th, 1942, in Louisville, Kentucky. And yeah, he would unfortunately pass away at the age of 74, June the 3rd, 2016, in Scottsdale, Arizona. But yeah. He had a number of relationships. It shows spouses: Sonji Roy, 64 to 66, Belinda Boyd, 67 to 76, Veronica Porsche, 77 to 86, and his last wife, Yolanda Lonnie Williams, who he married in 86, but he passed away while still married to, I assume. But yeah. But yeah, had a number of nicknames: the greatest, the people's champion, the Louisville Lip, because he did a lot of talking, and he's from Louisville, so. But yeah, 61 total fights, 56 wins, 37 of his wins via KO, and only 5 losses, winning the world heavyweight title 3 times, 3 different times. His amateur boxing, he was in the Olympic Games 1960 Rome, where he won the light heavyweight title. 59 Chicago Inner City Golden Gloves light heavyweight title. 1969 or 1960 New York Golden Gloves Inner City heavyweight title. And you can see because it gives the G, gold, 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 gold. Chicago Golden Gloves, 59, again, light heavyweight. Chicago Golden Gloves, 1960, light heavyweight. Toledo, light heavyweight in 59, and 60, light heavyweight. So, he's winning all over the place. As an amateur and then as a professional, he was fairly well dominant. But he is often, like I said, cited as the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time. He would join the Nation of Islam in the early 60s, but later disavowed the group in the mid 70s. because of what we found out they were really like. They were nothing like true Islam. But I believe this is after he has his Hajj, the journey to Mecca, that he disavows the Nation of Islam. Uh, he his heavyweight championship holds, beating Sonny Liston February 25th, 1964, at 22 years of age. In 1967, he refused to be drafted into the military, uh, and he says it's because of religious beliefs and ethical opposition to the war, and was found guilty of draft evasion and stripped of his boxing titles. Stayed out of prison while appealing the decision to the Supreme Court, where his conviction was overturned in 71. Did not fight for nearly 4 years from that point, and lost a period of peak performance as an athlete. Ali's actions as a conscientious objector to the Vietnam War made him an icon for the larger counterculture of the 1960s generation. He would have several big name fights, including fights with Sonny Liston, Joe Frazier, including the fight of the century, which was the biggest boxing event up until then. The famous Thrilla in Manila, where he beat George Foreman. He beat George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle. Thrilla in Manila. Who did he face in the Thrilla in Manila? Frazier, it looks like. But yeah, Rumble in the Jungle. He beats Foreman, who at that point they hadn't fought, but Foreman was like his big clubbing boxer. He really took out a lot of opponents that way. But yeah, Ali's famous boxing technique, the rope-a-dope. But yeah. Talk about his amateur career, professional career. Heavyweight champion, like I said, 3 different times. We'll not get into that too much. I want to see if they'll mention, okay, they talk about his draft resistance. And this is still when you had a draft in America. Basically, where all the poor people were gathered up and sent to fight for America without their decision to do so. The military would stop performing a draft in the 70s just because there was so much pushback. Yeah. Yeah, they kept trying to draft him in, and he's like, no, I'm not doing it. I do not believe in fighting people overseas who are poor and just trying to survive, live their lives. You know. And of course, the NSA and FBI monitoring Muhammad Ali's communications, as they like to do to a number of people who were pro-peace, pro-left, pro-this, pro-that, because it didn't equal up to the conservative capitalist BS. Yeah, communications of leading Americans, including Ali, Senators Frank Church and Howard Baker, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., prominent U.S. journalists, and others who criticized the U.S. war in Vietnam. The review by the NSA of the Minaret, the code name for the spying program, concluded that it was disreputable, if not outright illegal. So, yeah. But yeah, all people who were like, no, we should be looking to do things peacefully. But yeah. Now, he would be, because he refused to be drafted into the military, like we said, boxing would strip him of his titles. And so he was exiled from boxing. Ages, which kept him out of boxing from ages 25 to 29. I mean, that's your late 20s is part of your peak years. And yeah, they screwed him over on that. Protesting while exiled. During this time of activity, as opposition to the Vietnam War began to grow and Ali's stance gained sympathy, he spoke at colleges across the nation criticizing the Vietnam War and advocating African American pride and racial justice. Ali based himself in Chicago. According to most close to him, his Chicago years were formative. At the time, Ali was widely condemned by the American media and fears that his actions could potentially lead to mass civil disobedience. Despite this, Ebony magazine noted in the late 1960s that Ali's popularity had increased during this time, especially among black people. You notice civil mass disobedience, not even riots or anything like that, protest, sit-ins, stuff like that. This is what they were apparently scared of. Something that is guaranteed to us in the First Amendment. They don't like us being peaceful, but pushing back. Let's see. But of course, he wins his right to box back. Talk about fight against Frazier. Other fights. And as we mentioned in one of my previous episodes, he worked with people like Jim Brown and other big names who were part of trying to make things better. Yeah. Uh, ba, 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 ba. Yeah, married 4 times, 7 daughters, 2 sons. Let's see. Yeah, his daughter Layla Ali would become a professional boxer on her own for a number of years. Uh, bu- 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 Paternity claims. Affiliation with the Nation of Islam. Ali said he first heard of the Nation of Islam when he was fighting in the Golden Gloves tournament in Chicago in 1959 and attended his first Nation of Islam meeting in 1961. He continued to attend his first Nation of Islam meeting in 1961 and continued to attend meetings through, though although he kept his involvement hidden from the public. In 1962, Muhammad Ali, then I believe still under the name Cassius Clay, Malcolm X. So again, a big name in civil rights, who soon became his spiritual and political mentor. By the time of his first Sonny Liston fight, Nation of Islam members, including Malcolm X, were visible in his entourage. This led to a story in the Miami Herald just before the fight disclosing that Clay had joined the Nation, which nearly caused the bout to be canceled. The article quoted Cassius Clay Sr. as saying that his son had joined the Black Muslims when he was 18. In fact, Clay was initially refused entry into the Nation due to his boxing career. However, after he won the championship from Liston in '64, the Nation of Islam was more receptive and agreed to publicize his membership. Because if you've got someone with that much popularity within your group, it's going to draw eyes. So, yeah. Let's see. March 6th, is that 64 as well? Uh, Elijah Muhammad gave a radio address that Clay would be renamed Muhammad, one who is worthy of praise, Ali Most High. Around that time, Ali moved to the south side of Chicago and lived in a series of houses, always near the Nation of Islam's Mosque Maryam, or Elijah Muhammad's residence. He stayed in Chicago for about 12 years. Only a few journalists, most notably Howard Cosell, accepted the new name at that time. Yeah, for our transgender friends out there, a lot of people don't like saying things you tell them you are if it's not what you were originally born as. You know, Muhammad Ali didn't want the slave name Cassius Clay. Many transgender individuals, like, look, I may have been born in this one, but it's clear I meant in this one. And thus I should be this gender. So it's not a new thing. It's always been in our society. There's always assholes. Ali stated his earlier name was a slave name and a white man's name, and added that I didn't choose it and I don't want it. I am Muhammad Ali, a free name. The person he was formerly named after was a white slave owner turned abolitionist. So yeah. Uh, yeah. Um, Ali's friendship with Malcolm X ended as Malcolm split with the Nation of Islam a couple weeks after Ali joined, and Ali remained. Ali later said that turning his back on Malcolm was one of the mistakes he regretted most in his life, because remember, he just stated that Malcolm X was like a spiritual advisor and a mentor to Ali. The Nation of Islam was widely viewed by whites and some African Americans as a black separatist hate religion with a propensity toward violence. Ali had few qualms about using his influential voice to speak the Nation of Islam doctrine. At a press conference articulating his opposition to the Vietnam War, Ali stated, "My enemy is the white people, not Viet Cong or Chinese or Japanese." Which, it was a tense moment in racial relations with the civil rights and everything going on as it was. Writer Jerry Eisenberg noted that the nation became Ali's family and Elijah Muhammad became like his father, and there was an irony in the fact that the nation branded white people as devils. Ali had more white colleagues than most African American people did at the time in America, and continued to have them throughout his career. Yeah, this is one thing that irritates me so much. There is no need for such division amongst people for what amounts to some of the most minute differences. Honestly, it's stupid. We're all human. Period. You're just trying to separate people more if you start to dig in. They're this, they're that. And I understand some people want it for statistical cases, but it ends up just causing a problem because there's always those with ill will that seek to use this information to their advantage. Yeah, he would become a Sunni Islam. He was not a Christian, and he fought for the idea of God having a son sounded wrong and did not make sense to him, stating, "God don't beget, man begets." However, he still believed that even good Christians or good Jews could receive God's blessing and enter heaven, as he stated, "God created all people no matter what their religion." He also stated, if you're against someone because he's a Muslim, that's wrong. If you're against someone because he's a Christian or Jew, that's wrong. Yeah, the Hajj changes a lot for Ali. In his 2004 autobiography, Ali attributed his conversion to mainstream Sunni Islam and Warith Din Muhammad, who assumed leadership for the Nation of Islam upon the death of his father, Elijah Muhammad, and persuaded the nation's followers to become adherents to Sunni Islam. It's one of the two major forms of Islam, Sunni Shiite, or Shiite. There's so many different ways it's pronounced. He said some people do not like the change and stuck to Elijah's teachings, but he admired it. And so he left Elijah's teachings and became a follower of Sunni Islam. Ali had gone to the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca in 72, which inspired him in a manner similar to Malcolm X. And this is true if you've ever read his autobiography. It talks about his experience and how it kind of opens his eyes and looking at things. Malcolm X. So, yeah. Uh, Meeting people of different colors and all over the world gave him a different outlook and greater spiritual awareness. In 77, he said that after he retired, he would dedicate the rest of his life to getting ready to meet God by helping people, charitable causes, uniting people, and helping to make peace. He would go on another Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca in 1988. Even after the September 11th attacks in 2001, he stated Islam is a religion of peace and does not promote terrorism or killing people, and that he was angry that the world was not that the world sees a certain group of Islam followers who cause this destruction, but they are not real Muslims. They are racist fanatics who call themselves Muslims. And then the November 25th Paris attacks, he stated that true Muslims know that the ruthless violence of so-called Islamic jihadists goes against the very tenets of our religion. That we as Muslims have to stand up to those who use Islam to advance their own personal agenda. So, yeah. He would gain guidance from many different Islamic scholars. So, yeah, they list a number of them here. He would end up suffering during his amateur career. He refrained from smoking, drinking, drugs, alcohol, soda pop, and blocked and adopted an idiosyncratic diet. Upon his acceptance of the dietary restriction of Islam, the Nation of Islam recruited cooks to prepare his meals, but he would end up suffering, I can't remember if it was just Bell's palsy or ALS, but essentially you could see the effect it was having on his body because he was constantly shaking. Yeah. He would act a little bit, up in too major, but yeah. Release some poetry. He would even show up in professional wrestling during his height. Yeah, he would fight in one of these bouts Antonio Inoki, which, if you know anything about professional wrestling, the man who helped found New Japan Pro Wrestling, the big uh, federation in Japanese wrestling. So, yeah. Uh, so he would face off with Gorilla Monsoon for what was in WWF, is now the WWE. Ali, yeah, and talk about the fight. 3185 March, special guest referee for the original WrestleMania. Let's see. Made a number of television appearances. Parkinson's disease. Yeah, that might have been. No, that was just the actual person, but I think it might have been Parkinson's disease he suffered from. Yeah, Parkinson's syndrome. So that's where you can see he doesn't have the kind of control he once had. He would get the diagnosis in '84. Ali was also known for being a humanitarian and philanthropist and focused on practicing his Islamic duty of charity and good deeds, donating millions to charity organizations and disadvantaged peoples of all religious backgrounds. It is estimated that Ali helped feed more than 22 million people afflicted by hunger across the world. Early in his career, one of his main focuses was youth education. He spoke at several historically black colleges and universities about the importance of education and became the largest single black donor to the United Negro College Fund in '67 by way of a $10,000 donation, equivalent to $78,000 in 2020. In late 1966, he also pledged to donate a total of $100,000 to the UNCF, United Negro College Fund, specifically promising to donate much of the proceeds of his title defense against Cleveland Williams and paid $4,500 per closed circuit installation at 6 HBCUs, historically black colleges, universities, so they could watch his fights. He would visit Africa, starting in 1964, visiting Nigeria and Ghana. '74, visited a Palestinian refugee camp in southern Lebanon, where Ali declared support for the Palestinian struggle to liberate their homeland. Well before, he was a man speaking up for peace. Speaking up for the fact that, hey, Palestinians just want to live their life. During that visit, Ali also declared the U.S. to be the stronghold of Zionism and imperialism. Hey, I can't refute that. In '78, following his losses to Leon Spinks, before winning the rematch, Ali visited Bangladesh and received an honorary citizenship there. And the same year, he participated in the Longest Walk, a protest march in the U.S. to support Native American rights, along with singer Stevie Wonder and actor Marlon Brando. In early 1980, Ali was recruited by Jimmy Carter for a diplomatic mission to Africa in an effort to persuade a number of African governments to join the U.S.-led boycott of the Moscow Olympics in protest of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. He would arrive in Tanzania and tell cameras, Russia is invading a Muslim country, Asiatic country, and that is probable intention to heed the oil-rich, to head to oil-rich Persia, to take wells and ports, could lead to nuclear war. My purpose in coming here is to try to stop that. However, according to Ali biographer Thomas Hauser, at best it was ill-conceived, at worst a diplomatic disaster. Now remember, when you're thinking Persia, you're thinking Iran, Iraq, that area of the Middle East. The Tanzanian government was insulted that Carter had sent an athlete to discuss a serious political issue. One official asked whether the U.S. would send Chris Evert to negotiate with London. Consequently, Ali was only received by the Youth and Culture Minister rather than President Julius Nyerere, or Nyerere. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Ali was unable to explain why the African country should join the U.S. boycott when it had failed to support the African boycott of the '76 Olympics in protest of apartheid in South Africa. Although neither did the Soviet Union, so it didn't help them any at all. Ali would, however, convince Kenya to boycott the Soviet Olympics. In 1981, in Los Angeles, he would talk a suicidal man down from jumping off a ninth floor ledge, an event that made national news. I mean, this is probably one of the biggest things. He saves the life of a man we don't even know, and because it was the right thing to do. In '84, Ali announced his support for the re-election of U.S. President Ronald Reagan. When asked to elaborate on his endorsement, Ali told reporters he's keeping God in schools, and that's enough. Unfortunately, he wouldn't know immediately of all the evils Reagan was dealing out to people. In '85, he visited Israel and requested the release of Muslim prisoners at Atlit detainee camp, which Israel declined. But yeah. '96 Olympics in Atlanta. I remember this when he lit the flame. It was a big moment on television. '94, he campaigns to the U.S. government to come to the aid of refugees afflicted by the Rwandan genocide, the Hutus and the Tutsis, and to donate to organizations helping Rwandan refugees. Ali would meet a lesbian couple who were fans of his in '97. He smiled and said to friend and biographer Thomas Hauser, "They look like they're happy together." Hauser would write about the story. The thought that Liz and Roz, the couple you met, were happy pleased Muhammad. Ali wanted people to be happy, as it should be. That should be all that matters. If you're not hurting others and you're happy, by all means. But there's people who won't accept that. And that's what is so sad. Yeah, he would also be apparently a bearer of the Olympic flag during the opening ceremonies of the 2012 Olympics in London. At that point, he had to be helped to his feet by his wife and stand before the flag due to his Parkinson's, rendering him unable to carry it into the stadium. But yeah, like I said, Parkinson's would take a big effect on him. And he would pass away from a respiratory illness. Um, Being hospitalized in Scottsdale, Arizona. Condition was initially described as fair, but it worsened and he died the following day at 74 years of age from septic shock. But yeah, again, one of the better names you're going to find when it comes to African American history. You know, amazing boxer in the ring, amazing athlete, but he also did some wonderful things as an individual. And those often don't get discussed near as much as they should. It's already taken me so long to read through all this. This video is already 41 minutes. I had other things, you know, welcome to the Muhammad Ali Center to talk about Ali and his legacy and the stuff he left to try to make the world a better place. You know, Center for Humanity and Justice, the museum. Yeah. Had his Britannica entry here. It goes quite a ways. Talks about some of the other things, Rumble in the Jungle, Civil Rights Movement, which he was a big part of. He was even mentioned when we talked about Jim Brown in a previous episode. And an article from the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. But yeah. But we'll go ahead and end this episode here. Just wanted to talk a bit about the man, give an example of who he was and why he's, you know, important in African American history. Because it goes well beyond just boxing. But, as always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting my links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.